What would happen if younger people didn't know what was going on? I think that's an essential question that you guys have to address. My name is Karan, and this is my podcast, Uncensored. The major problems with not knowing what's going on is that with everything that's going to happen, say like wars and stuff, you don't really know how it's going to affect you if you don't watch the news. It all goes back to last year. I didn't really think that politics really affected me until I saw the massive protests that were happening, blocking the streets and everything because people were getting taxed even more, government officials were getting higher wages, and just basically chaos. And then because of that, I couldn't really go to school, and that's when it really click. Oh damn, I'm really connected to this. It's like I can't go to school because ABC. At that point, I really started to think deep about every issue that has been going on, how it affects me, so I can try to process it even deeper in my brain. So what this podcast is for me to give the access to knowledge about politics to people like me, people like the younger generation who aren't really interested in politics, or they don't really understand politics, but they want to have sort of a gist to what politics does to them, how politics affects them in their daily lives. Let's take my little brother for an example, right? I don't really expect him to, sit through a whole 15 minutes of watching, let's say, news. I don't think young people really understand what's going on in the news, although there are headlines that clearly say, oh, ABC is happening, XYZ is the root cause of this. But do they really understand it? They don't really get the context of it because the news is just happening at the moment, right? Most of the times they're reporting what's happening live, or maybe sometimes they report on what's happened recently. And not much do they try to simplify for people who are, just starting to get into politics. There's no really, big outlet for that. So accessibility is really the problem here for beginners, let's say beginners to politics. And my brother is one of those beginners. That's why I made this podcast. And I'm hoping that through this podcast, he can really understand why it's important to understand politics, because again, it affects him in the long run. Does politics really affect me, a teenager in Indonesia, that much? Short answer, it really does. So usually when I talk to my friends, they talk about several different things, school, academics, sports, but rarely do I hear about politics, about the government, about recent news. They really think that stuff doesn't really affect them, or it's just someone else's job to inform us about it or to talk about it. The most common example that I see people giving is that when people are debating over dinner about politics, let's say, and they're arguing each other about sensitive topics that are filled with contention, and they're just there, just listening, and you really don't have an opinion. And I just want you to be informed, and for you to have an opinion to bring to the table. I'm not forcing you to go this way to be a Democrat, this way to be a Republican, this way to be conservative. No, I'm just giving you the resources for you guys to be into politics, interested in politics, and maybe spread that awareness. There are a lot of misinformation these days, a lot of, contradicting points, contradicting headlines you see there out in the news about, let's say, one topic, because one can be saying ABC, one can be saying XYZ, and they're contradicting each other. And I feel like some people from a very young age, their political views in the future might get manipulated by these type of misinformation. So I'm trying to, break these down, find what's actually true. I think MUN is maybe my starting point to this podcast as well. The most memorable MUN experience that I've gone through, it was probably when I was in a UN Security Council. We were talking about the South China Sea dispute, economic exclusive zones, EEZs, UN clause, those kind of stuff. Although I was Vietnam, I was really interested, I was really inspired by what, delegates of Indonesia or other ASEAN countries have said, because what they said about how their country is experiencing and how this South China Sea problem is affecting their civilians really just made me think oh, I might be involved in this. Not as Vietnam, but as an individual, as a citizen of Indonesia, as a youngster in Indonesia, I might just be affected by this, because again, South China Sea, it affects fishermen near the tuna islands because there are, again, disputes around the EEZs, and there has been attacks, and maybe people around the tuna islands can't really get that much money because they can't fish without getting persecuted by other surrounding adversaries. That affects our fish markets too. If you really think about it, it all ties back to the market, and who buys those fish? We do. And then you realize, why am I not having fish recently for dinner? So I guess it really does affect. And I think that's what really inspired me, oh, I have a say in this because I get affected. I'm doing this podcast to, one, break down different news outlets to you, give you the correct information, and give an accessible way for you guys to form your own political views as young people, so that there's no misinformation that will manipulate your political views in the future. And second, to tie it back to the first point, I'm not preaching to you guys any kind of political views. I'm not preaching to you guys my political views. As I said before, I'm only explaining. Think of me as your translator. A translator from complex news that seems like a foreign language to simpler terms, analogies that can help you, the younger audience, comprehend what's actually happening and how it affects you in your life. And third and final point, I think this is the most important, is that I want the younger people to not make stupid decisions in the future. And how? It's to simply be educated, because many people right now, whether they're in politics or not, some of them are misguided by misinformation, and that ties back to my other 2 points about clearing up or clarifying different news outlets to you guys so that you can actually be interested in politics the proper way. I think it's important for you guys, especially the younger audience, to break down these news. How? Through my guiding questions. What is happening? Who is involved? Where is this news coming from? Is there any left-wing bias, right-wing bias, or are they more centralized? Why does it matter in this this modern day? And really, the important thing is, how is it affecting you? And if it does affect you, what steps must you take to solve the issue if it's within your reach? I think those guiding questions have pretty much helped me differentiate different types of news and break them down to conceptualize my own political perspective on a certain issue. And I think it really helps. Yeah. I think to summarize it in one sentence, my goal is to make you guys comfortable with politics, make you guys have a future in politics that isn't misguided by some sort of misinformation. And it's to spread awareness about how politics affects you, the younger audience, in your daily lives. So to tie it back to why the younger audience is so important is because international relations, IR basically, you think it only affects nations as a whole, but also our future career gets affected, our education paths, our accessibility to said education gets affected. And that's why I think that international relations is a pretty important thing that shouldn't really stay foreign to us. And I think that as we grow older, we should grow more aware of how it's affecting us. So I hope with this podcast, you guys, the younger audience, are able to distinguish different types of news, break them down, and have your own political thoughts based on not misunderstanding, not misinformation, but of clear political facts that you guys are breaking down with the guiding questions that I said before. I'm gonna end this off with one last question that I would want you guys to discuss down in the comments, or maybe just ponder about it. In your situation, since again, I know that each of you that are watching this have unique lives, where are you in the status quo of your nation's politics right now? How are you affected by what your nation is doing? How are you affected with what other nations are doing? And how do you think politics affects you in life? I think that's an essential question that you guys must ponder about. So with that, stay tuned with my future podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell, and I'll see you in my future discussions.